So you may have watched a couple of these videos already, and you may be wondering, why is this such a big deal? You know, why are these people posting these things on YouTube and Facebook, and what's a big deal? I mean, people get in relationships every day, right? Yes, but most of what we really, really wanted to share with you has more to do with how much God has brought redemption in our lives, both through answering our prayers and just what He's brought to us in the gift of each other. And also, for me personally, for those of you guys that have known me, and the reason why you're chiming in on these videos is because you know that I waited a really, really long time to find the right man. Now, what do I mean by a really, really long time? Let's just say that I went well over a decade without even so much as kissing anyone. Not even kidding. I know some of you guys are going, what? No, surely that is not true, and I promise you it is. Why did I do that? Well, number one, because God told me to. Number two, because I believe in fairy tales. And when I say fairy tales, I just don't mean like, oh, someday I'm going to find a right man and there's going to be romance, so I'm going to hold off on all other men, blah, 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 you know, as if it's just about the man. This has never been just about the man for me. This has been about God. Because if you notice, what are the key elements of fairy tales? And basically, if you take a look at the old archetype, which is boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy wins girl back, etc., and it's in every love story that you ever encounter, where do you think that came from? That came from God's love for us. Let me spell it out for you. It's to the tune of, for the king so loved the princess, and that's us, that he sent his one and only prince to fight for her, to slay the dragon, to defy evil, just to be able to win her back. And there was just something about that fairy tale that just always gripped my heart as the one to believe in. And I think there's a reason why people care so much about, they're just infatuated with love. You know, they're just infatuated with, how do I find that sensation or hook up with the right person, or, you know, because they're really, what people are crying out for is that feeling of knowing that that kind of love exists. And it does. But you have to wait for it. And you have to follow. It is only found in God. And I knew that. And there were times when He spoke to me. This is not something I would recommend for everybody. I wouldn't have anybody wait this long. But because this mattered so much to me, I did wait. And in some ways, it's because He spoke to me specifically about it. Back in 2003, there was this prayer time that I had where He painted this picture for me of the fact that it was going to take a while. And I won't go into detail with that, but at that time, I mean, there's those of you that know me and know that story of log cabins and skyscrapers, if that means anything to you, where, you know, I knew that it wasn't just enough for me to have the 2.5 kids and the picket fence and all that, because I never just wanted a family. I do want a family, but I wanted more than that. I wanted God's love, and I really wanted to love outside of my family, to love more people than that, and to leave a legacy in this lifetime. And that's up to Him. That's not anything that I can control. But, you know, there basically came a point in time where He was like, what do you want? And at that time, He was like, you can have a family, you know, you can have the 2.5 kids if you want, but is that what you really want? And at that time, I was like, no, you know, I want more than that. And at that time, He basically said, okay, it's going to take a while. You're going to have to wait for it. And so, like I said, it's not that He's cruel, but He's not going to do that to everyone. But He kind of prepared my heart in the way that I knew that I needed to be able to just kind of make it. Of course, I had no idea how long that was going to be. a decade later. Had no idea how long that was going to be. I'm kind of glad I didn't. And, you know, there were some other things that he spoke to me during that particular time period that were, would you be willing to lay some of these dreams down in order to have some greater impact right now? And at that time, you know, I helped to start a youth group and had some of the most amazing kids on the planet. And you guys are not kids anymore, you're grown-ups. And, but it was just, you know, just such an amazing time period in my life. And for so long, I kind of held out and I was okay, you know, even into my 30s. And for those of you who want to know, I'm 39 right now. Ooh, crazy. But, you know, for a long time, I mean, yeah, I'd struggle with it here and there, but, you know, watch everybody get married. Everybody but me get married. And, you know, I struggled with it maybe a little bit, and I'd pray about it sometimes, but really for the most part, like, I was just so, you know, fired up for what was happening in people's lives and just pouring into people and whatever, until the last couple years, and I'll get to that in a minute. But, you know, there came a time period in about 2008 or so where, you know, I was going through a really rough time period, and there's so many dreams in my life that were falling apart. And I was just kind of toast at that point, you know, holding out, believing that God would show up, and anything in my faith was just like, oh, I mean, stick a fork in me, you know. But during that time period, as other things were going on in ministry with my job, and just so many other things were just having a hard time, like so many of you in 2008, 2009, at that point, there was a night where there's a friend of mine and we were hanging out for dinner, and, you know, all of a sudden I just felt like God was calling me to go home and pray. And when I got home, I was like, well, what do you want, God? And I felt like he was saying at that time, dream or die, dream or die. And that sounds really severe, but the way that he said it to me, it was kind of like, I want you to dream and ask for some things in prayer right now. And when you do that, there's something about sowing in hope that, I mean, it doesn't change the fact that he's going to bring things to me on the other side, but what it meant was, by asking for those things, then I would know the answer when I saw it on the other side. And, you know, I just went home and was making a list, and I felt like God was asking me to make a list about what I would want in my husband and in a future life. And please believe that was the last thing I felt like doing at that time. But I did. And there's so many of those things that I had written down that, you know, I'll share a couple of them with you, but Aaron is so many of these, he's just pretty much all of these things that I had written down. And, you know, I had written things like, you know, I want to be fiercely protected. Honestly, I kind of grew up in a situation where I was not always protected, and there were some bad things happening, and, you know, I was just like, I want to be protected. I want somebody who has strong arms, and that I would never have to be afraid being held by him. And, you know, there's some other really important things, like, you know, somebody who has a love of business, who's not just been in ministry, but just kind of has a good business sense and knows how to relate to people in that sense, and but also who wants to reach out and has a heart for ministry and really wants to help relationally with other people, which Aaron totally is. And, you know, I hang out in a lot of different kinds of circles, you know, I have a lot of different kinds of friends, and, you know, I kind of wanted somebody that could handle himself, that really could cross over in all of these different types of friendship circles that I have, and boy, is Aaron that. And, you know, one of the things that and there's so many other things, but one of the things that floored me the first night that I met Aaron, he picked up on enough to know that there had been times in my life that I had not been safe, and he just looked at me and he said, I just want you to always feel like I'm a safe place for you, that you can talk to me and that you never have to fear ever being harmed. And I just about choked up on that first night because he had no idea that that was straight off my list. And then the other thing was, at that time, I was like, I don't know how attached to get to you on this just yet, to really receive that at the level that I know that God's put that in my heart to receive, and how badly I need that. And I mean, there's, like I said, there's so many other things on that list that I had written down, and I had sent it off to my friends as a witness, because I was like, one day you're going to see this and you're going to know, and you're going to be able to gauge this with me, and you're going to be able to know when the right man comes along, whether or not he is these things, and hold me to that. And so they did. And, but he still, at 2008, was nowhere in sight. And later on, when he tells his story, he still had so much processing to go through at that point before he could really meet me. But I did make that list. And then, and like I said, I did okay for the last, for the first decade or so of that weight, even when I know other women were really struggling and kind of falling apart on the whole husband and kids issue, or just different things of, do they feel loved? And, that is really the battle for women, honestly. And it goes back to the garden. I'm just going to preach a little bit and just say, Eve was cursed with, you will desire for your husband. And there's a lot of layers that go to that, and we can talk about, that's a whole other video theologically, but I am pretty much convinced that if God has that area of your life, then he has everything. And boy, I tell you what, for me to entrust him with this area of my life for that long, with like zero affection really, and I mean, I know there's people that are watching this going, she is crazy. And I was crazy for believing in God that he would answer that. And to me, like I said, this wasn't just about a man. This was about me and God. This is about, is he who he says he is? Does he have that kind of love? Does he answer these things in this lifetime like he says he does? And because it wasn't just about a man, because it was about me and God, the last couple years, I started struggling a little bit more. Like, I was just kind of getting weak on this front. Like, I don't really have the strength anymore to even believe in this at this level. And, I know even the people that had been in the youth group with me that I had started, they're all growing older and getting married and having beautiful families. And, even you guys watching me were probably like, I remember her. I thought that was cute in high school. And you may have never thought it was cute in high school, but you probably thought I was plumb crazy now. And, or whatever. And, at that point, in these last couple years, I really was just like, God, I want to believe in you, but I'm just really feeling weak. And this past summer, I ended up joining, there's this friend of mine, amazing friend of mine, Abby, love you, shout out to Abby and the group. And Abby put together this amazing curriculum of, gathered some of us who were single women and struggling, and not really struggling, but just so we could pray together and just kind of believe for bigger things. Love it. And at that time I was like, hey, I really just love being with the girlfriends. I really didn't even have faith for the whole husband thing anymore. I mean, I was like at this point where I'm going to buy a townhouse. Like y'all heard the first video, I'm like, I'm going to buy a townhouse. I'm going to get some cats. I'm just going to love on people for the rest of my life. And at this point, I'm kind of writing it off. And what I loved about this prayer was like a 6-week prayer group that we did. And at the end of it, we all prayed for each other. And we just kind of listened for, God, what is your heart for us and for possibly the men that you want to bring into our lives? So at the time, they were praying for me. And I was like, oh, bless their hearts. They're so sweet to spend that kind of time praying for me. Love them for that. but at the same time, I was like, "Ugh, whatever. It's just, I'm just grateful that they took the time out of their day for 30 minutes to pray for me. And then I went on with my merry way. Little did I know that at that time, that specific time period when they were praying, was when Aaron felt led to get on Christian Mingle. He just started feeling this pull. He was like, I just feel like I'm supposed to get on there. And I had set up a profile and had just kind of left it running and was like, whatever. And I was barely even on it because I kind of was, like I said, whatever. So, he was just feeling this draw, like, I need to get on there and I'm going to find someone significant. And he didn't even feel like, he wasn't even having enough faith to go, hey, I might find somebody that I might spend the rest of my life with on there. He was just kind of like, I know I'm going to meet somebody important. And he just felt like it was a God thing. So he gets on there, we meet, we're hanging out, and, about a month into it or whatever, one of the things that he said to me was, he looked at me and said, I kind of like, I think you said Neapolitan ice cream. It has all the different flavors in it. And he was like, we've kind of had a weekend where you're like, you are all these different things. And I love that about you. And all of a sudden I went, oh, I remember my friends prayed for that for me. That is so crazy. And, and after he left from us hanging out, I went back because I hadn't looked at it, and that had all happened before I met him. So I went back and listened through. We had recorded these prayers for each other. So I went through and I listened through these prayers, and I freaked out because almost everything that they prayed for me, line item, was those things. One of the things that I had been scared about was, I'm such a multifaceted person, business, ministry, music, artistic, this, just all over the place, and, it makes people tired. It does. I know. I'm sorry, y'all, that I make you tired. But, I was like, who is going to be able to handle all that, all those flavors? And one of the things that they had prayed for me for was that the guy that was going to be in my life would appreciate all of those things. And so I couldn't believe he was saying that. And then, but my favorite thing out of all the things that they prayed for, I kid you not, I'm going to read it to you. One of them prayed, and she said, I actually got linebacker. She said, I saw this huge man come up and wrap his huge arms around you. I don't know whether or not he's going to be a big guy, but he's going to be big enough to handle everything you've got. And they meant emotionally and spiritually, not just physically. You see those videos of football training camp, and they have weight coming against them, and it's like, he can handle it. He's ready for whatever you got. He can handle it. You can come at him with anything, and he'll just be there to support you no matter what. And wow, that is so Aaron. And almost everything on this prayer time that we had was like that after I met him, and I freaked. And later on, if y'all want to hear more about that, you message me, and I'll send that to you ad nauseum. But, then it has just been amazing, just what God has done with that. And, Aaron had to go through his own processing before we could meet. There was a series of events that had to happen in his life before he finally really surrendered to God. And although it was really, really tough for me to wait that long for him, on the other hand, I can tell you that I have noticed that, especially when you get to be my age, 39 or even whatever, people have been through enough that there are plenty of people that are kind of broken, and they've gone through heartaches, and at this age you should have gone through some heartaches because life kind of seasons you a little bit. But one of the things I can tell you that is a make it or break it difference is whether or not, when people go through that brokenness, if they really surrender their lives to God. Because it's not really until you surrender your life to God that you hand over those pieces to Him, and He can put it all back together again. And He is the one that takes these things, takes all this brokenness, and He just makes it beautiful. It was painful for me to wait that long. just to withstand that. And just, it was tough. It was really character building in ways and places that people will never see. And it was tough for Aaron to go through everything that he's gone through, which he'll share later. But I can tell you that by both of us being surrendered to God, he really has brought all of these pieces back together in this amazing way. And I also can tell you that as a woman, it is a huge deal when you're following and co-leading with a man, because it's both. When you really are ready to hitch your wagon to a dude, it's a big deal whether or not he's just leading his life in his own strength versus whether or not he's really surrendered and following God. And it would not have really totally been a safe place for me to really join forces with Aaron until he was in that place of surrender. And now we are just so excited to get to share with you guys all of these things of just how he's beginning to bring these pieces together for both of us. And it has nothing to do with whether or not we had control over this. We had to wait on God and yield to him in order for him to bring this together. And we're just so grateful that we just wanted to share that, because we believe that as much as he has answered my prayers and been faithful, and as much as he has put Aaron's life back together, and he put back my life together, and all the things that I lost and just kind of had ripped away from my heart, we believe that that same thing exists for you, and we want that for you. And I'm sorry that he's not here with me, or his head would be bobbing, and we would both just be tag team saying how much we love you, and we want that for you too. And so please just know that there's hope, and that's all I'm going to share for now. Thank you for letting me get to share this story that I've waited for so long to be able to tell. And maybe now you understand why so many people have been commenting on these videos, because there have been people that have known me for a really long time and have watched this in my life for real. And thank you guys all for being with me and praying with me on my side through such a major difficult journey. And thank you, Aaron, for surrendering your life to God, and for being all that he has made you to be, and for, without you trying, just you being who you are, being an answer to so many of my prayers.